I just want to take the time to introduce Bryan Hopper. So Bryan is a fantastic player, and I can say that because he plays for me. But Bryan operates Blue Star Lacrosse out of New Jersey. He's one of the co-founders there, and this started around 2015, the fall of 2015, actually. Um, and it's become one of the preeminent club teams. And I've been able to spend some time around it and spend some time around Bryan Hopper, Don Green, MV Whitlow, and see what their development is like within a club concept. So without further ado, I'm going to let Bryan take it away, and we will see you in a bit.
Awesome. Thank you, Brad. Very happy to kick things off here for the Global Lacrosse Summit 2020. Very excited to be sharing some information, some knowledge that we as Blue Star Lacrosse have found that works over the last couple of years. And hopefully this helps some of you guys understand the club lacrosse scene better and gives you a little bit more insight into how we operate. So first slide here, a little background about Blue Star Lacrosse. Like Brad said, we're a boys program based out of New Jersey. We run year-round, and we run year-round training, all-star teams, camps, box lacrosse. We run stuff for players that are in our all-star program. So those are players who try out for our teams and are put on a club team. But we also run a lot of stuff for kids who just want to stop in for a camp or a training session or a clinic. Our staff has a combined 40 years of high school and club lacrosse experience. At the end of the day, our product is our staff. And, when you're thinking about, okay, maybe my son wants to get into a club program, what should I look at? Well, it's who's going to be in front of your kid and how experienced are they? How knowledgeable are they? Are they good coaches, role models, etc.? So we're very, very proud of our staff, and we take a lot of time in curating our staff, grooming young coaches, because at the end of the day, that is our product. We do a lot of assisting town and local rec programs in New Jersey, especially during the spring. We get a lot of requests from towns to help staff their 5th and 6th grade teams, to do coaches clinics for all their middle school coaches. We do a lot of that during the spring, in addition to all being high school coaches as well. And we love doing that sort of stuff, very grassroots. And just this last bullet here, we've had over 95 college commits in the last 4 years. That's the end result of a lot of hard work by players and families, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of time and commitment. Our mission, simply put, is to develop young men of character through the sport of lacrosse. We, at Blue Star, we don't particularly care about winning a club lacrosse tournament in Philadelphia in July. That's not, at the end of the day, that is not really our main objective. Our main objective is to be educators, make sure our players learn a lot of lessons, and we believe that the winning will take care of itself if you instill good character and work ethic. So why play for a club program? This question gets asked a lot. And first and foremost, the player wants to get better. In New Jersey, for instance, if you live in a town, you play with your rec team in the spring. Well, what do you do for the 4 other seasons? You want to keep playing. Club programs go all year round. And so oftentimes, parents look at club programs when their son or daughter says, yeah, I want to keep playing. Pretty straightforward. The coaching, again, our staff is our product. This is my full-time profession, as well as Don Green and MV's and a couple others. With most local town programs, you have volunteers. Not that that's a knock on them, but it's it's very few and far between that these town programs will have experienced coaches coaching young players. They're great. These town programs, rec programs are fantastic. It's very pure. We love it. We all grew up playing in these town programs, but at one point, you got to get to the next level. Support structure, club programs. We offer a lot to our players and families outside of just coaching on the field. There are so many things that are going to happen to adolescents and young athletes as they grow up from age, if they're with us at the beginning, from age 8 to 18. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to happen off the field. There's all kinds of stuff that's going to happen in school. We have seen a bit of it all. Not to sound too cliche about it, but a lot of parents will come to us for stuff that is totally unrelated to lacrosse, that they can't get advice on anywhere else. Being part of a club team, you play and compete against the best. You practice with the best in your area, in your state, and then you travel to other states and you play against the best players from other states, and so forth. Lifelong friendships. I, for one, remember a lot of the kids I played club lacrosse with growing up. A lot of our players stay in touch after they come through our program. They'll be playing against each other in high school for a long time. And ultimately, you want to play in college. A lot of our players aspire to be college lacrosse players. And in order to do so, you have to put in the work with the club program. You've got to go to club tournaments, and be seen by college coaches that attend those tournaments, etc. So our structure at Blue Star, we have our all-star program, which are our travel teams. We have them split into three different programs. The youth program, ages 5 to 11, that is about 3rd through 5th grade. We do pre-K to 2nd grade clinics, really basic stuff. Some of it's without pads. But in terms of the all-star teams, summer teams and teams that train year-round, that begins in 3rd grade. And then we have the middle school program, ages 12 to 14, and the high school program, ages 15 to 18. Now, before I go to the next slide, one thing that folks often talk about with club programs is, well, you guys have multiple teams and we don't want to be part of a program that has multiple teams. That often comes up a lot in the club world. And we carry multiple teams at every age level. And there's a very good reason for that. And it's the fact that every athlete's journey is different. And some players develop at different rates than others. The best player in 5th grade is not going to be the best player in 8th grade. He's not going to be the best player junior year. And he's not going to be the best freshman in college. And, to choose a program based on being in the quote top team when a player's young, very young, is short-sighted. You want to put your son or daughter in front of the best possible coaches, in front of the best possible role models. So let's go on to the youth program development. So I'm just going to go through the youth, middle school, and high school programs and talk about some of the things that we stress that we find are very important for each age group. And so the youth, again, 3rd grade through 5th grade, these are young guys. These are little bobbleheads for the most part. Fundamentals, you don't really learn to scoop a ground ball when you're in 6th or 7th grade. You learn when you're younger. How to pass the ball, you learn at a young age. And these are all things that you really can't stress enough. And, it starts with stuff as basic as wrists, how are your wrists or wrist placement on the stick? Is your stick cut long enough? Is your stick cut short enough? Are you throwing the ball vertical? How is your stick strung? Do you have too much whip for a little guy? you can't go slow enough with youth players because you're building the base from which all their other skills are going to eventually be derived from. Passion for play. This is pretty self-explanatory, but at this age, such a young age, these kids, we want to spread the love we have for the game to these guys as coaches. And we want everything to be fun, lighthearted, super positive, super encouraging. You would hate to see a young player get discouraged early in his career at such a young age. And then the last one here is role models. We find it very, very helpful to put positive role models of coaches, speakers, organizations in front of our little guys. They don't get to see high level athletes or, folks that we put in front of them at school. Maybe if they have older brothers, they get exposed to it that way, but, we focus on that. And so one of the things that we like to do with our young guys is every year we have a couple outside organizations come in. The Travis Manion Foundation, they were founded after the death of Travis Manion, who was a Marine recon sniper. And their mission's pretty simple. Their motto is, if not me, then who? And they will come to our players, talk about helping others, putting others first, what it means to be accountable, stuff that students, probably most young boys, don't get taught in school these days, for better or for worse. I mean, we provide it to them. And then we also have the One Love Foundation come and talk to our players every year. And, they do a great job with educating young boys and girls and adolescent boys and girls on healthy relationships. What's a healthy relationship, what's not, what's good, what's jealousy, what is, really basic stuff. So we love having them come every year and talk to our guys. And they also talk to our middle school and high school guys. So then we get into middle school development, middle school, 6th through 8th grade. And this is kind of where we start to tell our guys, all right, there are kids that play lacrosse, and then there are lacrosse players. Which do you want to be? This is a very transformative period for our all-stars. As it pertains to lacrosse, this is where you start implementing team concepts. So, team defense, team offense, slides, transition, that sort of thing. Man up, man down, general team ideas that they're going to build upon over the next 5-6 years. Positional skills. So, when they're in 3rd and 5th grade, you can put a position on them, but they're still pretty young. When they get to middle school, they start to differentiate. Okay, I want to be an attackman. What do I need to focus on? Do I need to focus on shooting on the run? Do I need to focus on my dodging? Am I a shooter? Am I a feeder? Getting an understanding of who they are and what they're going to be when they step on the field is very important. So we start doing a lot of position specific drills for middle schoolers. Lacrosse IQ, this is such an important part of the game and it's such an important intangible where you really, just even watching film with our guys, and speaking out loud and talking through what we're watching is super helpful for middle schoolers and this age, because they need to start thinking like lacrosse players. And then character and ethic. This is, again, kind of tying into one of our, big philosophies as a program. We want these middle schoolers to, start making the right decisions, because they're getting to that age where things are, things start to get interesting at school. They're in an interesting age group. So we stress, making the right choices, saying no, also all that stuff is very important. Very, very important at this age. Then we get to the high school development. So 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So here's when, players start to perfect their craft, goalies, defensemen, attackmen, long stick middies, face-off guys. This is where, this is really when you hunker down, you say, all right, what do I really need to work on? What are the intricacies of my position? What's going to make me better? How am I going to get onto that varsity squad? What's my role going to be? This is when we focus a lot on, very high level position skill work. Again,
Bryan,
character.
if I can jump in here just real quick before we get too far along.
Yep.
So for the people that know me, I appreciate you texting me your questions for Bryan, and that's I've got a couple here. It's kind of funny, but I can see some names on the list that I know personally. But I wanted everyone to be aware that at the bottom there's a Q&A section where any questions that you have, Bryan can answer, and we can kind of take a look at it as we go forward. But Bryan, one of the questions that was texted to me was along the lines of your players and where do they come from, and that was on the previous 2 slides. It was more for your younger guys, so it's kind of 2 parts. So where do your players come from, and does Blue Star recruit at the younger ages?
Good question. So the majority of our players, they come to us from towns with strong lacrosse programs. We see a lot of players from towns like Westfield. We actually have players, if you want to get specific geographically about it, we have players that come to us all the way from Ridgewood, New Jersey, which is the northern part of the state, to basically the outskirts of Philadelphia, the suburbs, Mount Laurel and Shawnee. And we have a central location in Princeton that's kind of halfway between everybody. We have players from the shore too. And the way people find us generally is by word of mouth. Or they see us at a tournament, they hear about us. The best marketing is word of mouth marketing, and our reputation. So
for the people that aren't familiar with that area, let's give them a time distance. So from Philadelphia to Ridgewood, is that safe to say 2 hours?
Yeah, exactly. So our central base is probably 1 hour, an hour and a half from the furthest in every direction of our players. We draw from an hour and a half away up to. And then do we recruit at the youth level? No, we do not. And this is kind of that's a very good question, because there definitely are programs that recruit at that young level, and our stance has been, that's not the way we want to operate. We want to make it so that people come to us because of our reputation, because of word of mouth. What often that we've seen, and Don and MV, my partners, more so than me, because they've been in this for much longer. The crazy parent that comes to us in 6th grade, or, wants to find the best 6th grade lacrosse team in the country for their, 6th grade middie, it's sometimes a big red flag. In the long run, that's their son's not going to be the best by high school. And that will lead to complications in your club. We want people that come to us because of who we are, because of what they see on our website. And at the end of the day, we do kick people out of the program if they're acting up and we think they're being, a problem on the sidelines or on the field.
Right.
So.
Okay. So sorry to interrupt, but one to press though. So again, everybody, just use the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to, maybe after Bryan transitions from slide to slide, we can slide a few questions in there. Okay. Thanks.
Great. So again, character ethic, high school guys, lot going on for a 16-year-old boy, and keeping him focused, staying off social media, that sort of stuff is very important. Weight, strength, and nutrition, this is something that is very important, and probably most high school athletes don't think about at all, especially nutrition. The weight room and strength, that's just that's market. That's what you have to do. You want to be bigger, stronger, faster. Well, you have to get in the weight room. And so we have a strength and conditioning coach on staff who works with all of our players. He's an awesome guy. Works at the Hun School. And then obviously the recruiting process is kind of the cherry on top. What does it all look like at the end? And every recruiting process is different. There's so much craziness with recruiting these days that we stress to each player and each family, it's going to go differently for you than it is for your teammate. You might be a late bloomer. We've had kids that come to us that couldn't walk and chew gum the same time freshman year. 5 years later, they're the prep player of the year in New Jersey. And in 9th grade, they were on our second team. It's just different for everyone. And our reputation as it pertains to the recruiting process is stellar. Envy and Don have an exceptional amount of experience with recruiting, and that's part of our reputation as well. Let me just check the Q&A here. Okay. Shoot. Brad, can you see my screen, Brad?
Yeah, I sure can.
Oh, all right, there we go. Okay. So
I'll filter the Q&A for you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. So box lacrosse is such an important tool that we emphasize here at Blue Star. I personally didn't even start playing until I was after college, and actually, have been playing for Brad for 5 years now. And as soon as I began playing, I realized just how important playing box lacrosse is to the development of lacrosse players' skills and lacrosse IQ and everything else. And my Envy and Don also felt the same way, and so we have made it a priority to get all of our players to play box lacrosse. And so how do we do that? We bought 2 SRG Pro Wall rinks. So you can see here, this is a rink that you can put up, put down. These boards, you can assemble them and disassemble them in a couple hours. And so what we do is we're able to offer 4 months of box lacrosse training, which is pretty much unheard of in the club world. And we put these boards down on turfs at schools after the football season and the fall soccer season. And we play outdoor box until February, Saturday and Sunday at a couple different locations. We offer to all of our players. Here's another picture of another box that we do. This winter was great. It was actually really warm all January and February. And as I have here, the second bullet point, the box lacrosse is an accelerator for skills. We find that, players that come out of the box lacrosse program into the spring are head and shoulders above their peers. Their stick skills are sharp. They're in great shape. And their lacrosse IQ is, improved dramatically. And we did used to go to a lot of tournaments. Brad actually came down and helped coach one that we won at the Mad Lax tournament a couple years ago. We've sort of found that those tournaments, as more and more people have gotten into club lacrosse, those tournaments have become, I'll just say, unregulated, and the officiating is dangerous, especially when you get to the high school play, because you get teams that can play real box lacrosse. You get teams that are just want to do it because they heard it's good. So we like to run all of our stuff in our own boxes. We do practices, skills, trainings. I got some videos here. All right, so this is just some YouTubes that we have up. This is a continuous 3-on-2 drill that we're doing with our middle schoolers, or maybe our youth guys there. You run that for an hour and a half twice a weekend for 4 months, your kid's going to get markedly better. Here's transition passing drill. This is our sixth and seventh graders here. All right. And the kids love it. They love having something to do in that kind of dead period. We've really made it a priority to do box lacrosse. And I see there's some Q&A. Brad, can you give me a question from there?
Yeah. So one of the questions is, do you run your box with teams, or as they show up, splitting the teams by age group? And if you do run it as teams, do you keep those same teams from summer and fall?
That's a good question. So we run it by grade and location. So we tell folks, Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m., the 4th and 5th graders will be practicing from 11 a.m. to noon. The 5th and 6th graders will be practicing. And it's not mandatory for our players to sign up, but I think we have about a 70% sign up rate from, the All-Star program. And this past year, we actually had 3 different locations. We had these 2 rinks, and then we had a outdoor rink, roller rink down south by Shawnee. So we actually had 3 different box locations, and we made it super convenient for parents of players at all ages to be able to go to a practice here, there. They can't make a Saturday in Princeton. Well, maybe they can make the Sunday down south, an hour, 45 minutes south. And we box lacrosse is so essential. We want to make it as convenient as possible for our parents.
Okay. And the second one, these clips are on the Blue Star YouTube channel?
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, in terms of the media and, the video themselves, I just had a question about sharing that in the chat, but in terms of these videos, you can find them on the Blue Star YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you go to our box lacrosse page on our website, you'll see even more photos and media from these rinks and our season. And that's another thing I'll say is that we call it the box lacrosse season. We want to differentiate it from kind of everything else we do, and kids really get into it. Like it really is a season unto itself. And we try to cap it off with going to a tournament at the end. But kids, they play so much during those 4 months that it's not necessary many of the times. And one thing I'll say is staff for box lacrosse. We have an awesome staff. I'm just one of several coaches. The other coaches are probably more experienced than me, way more experienced than me, with way more credentials. And, there's a lot of people trying to learn how to coach box lacrosse in the States, which is great. It'll probably take, a couple more years at least for the coaching level to catch up with players that were born and raised in Canada and coach. But, we are very proud of our box lacrosse staff and the product we put out on the floor for those guys as well. They're great guys, and practices are entertaining for sure.
Now you've had, just to elaborate on that, you've got some local former pros that are assisting. You've got high level experience now, being in several world championships and a European championship yourself. So maybe you want to give them an idea of who, like, experience wise, you've got NLL guys, MLL, you've got.
Yep. We've got 2 former NLL players. Alex Turner, who I think he's back in Langley. He's local in Philly. Luke Wiles has been coaching with us for a while. He's got tons of professional experience. We have local Philly guys that are American born, guys like Dave Smith. Who else have we had in the past? We've done practices with NXT and Tony Resch. We have coaches on staff for Blue Star that have MLL experience. So we have a great core of box lacrosse coaches surrounded by guys that, like me, who have played in, world championships over in Prague, and have some level of have a good level of experience underneath them. Going back on the tournaments for a second, Brad. You were with me the tournament that we went to in our first year of box lacrosse. While box lacrosse has exploded in America in the club scene, it's exploded at the expense of not having enough coaches that know how to coach the game. So, like I said, our product is our coaches, our staff. We're really proud of the box lacrosse staff that we have, because they teach the game it's a different type of game, and to see players have to think totally differently, they just grow so much in 4 months. And we found that we don't even need to go to these tournaments and compete against programs that don't know how to play. Let's just keep working on our skills at home. All right, so bringing it to current times here. What are we doing in response to COVID-19? What's going on in New Jersey currently? There's no sports being played. I don't think there's any sports being played at the youth level anywhere in the States right now. I think that some states are very close to getting there, and especially in the South. But as it pertains to us, New Jersey, tri-state area, we are in the hot spot. So right now there's no practices on the field allowed to happen. So what we've been doing is just holding Zoom practices, which are, we call them practices, but they're basically just time for us to get teams and players, online, and we'll watch film, we'll watch some highlights, we'll watch drills. It's just something to keep the players together and engaged. Webinars, we've done webinars with a bunch of college coaches that Coach Whitlow is friends with. So, our first webinar, he interviewed Bill Tierney, Baxter, and Raymond. I'm blanking on Baxter's first name there. Andrew and Greg Raymond. Just discussing how they're dealing with it, and how their programs are handling this. Those have been super helpful, just to kind of hear folks like themselves talk about how they're dealing with the craziness, and talk about having their seasons cut short. I mean, they had 5 days in between learning their season was canceled and when they had to leave campus. So it's always interesting to hear what guys like that have to say. So we've been putting out some webinars for our families. Backyard drills library, we're building that. That's our Instagram television page. We have Chris Aileen, a goalie that made drills for us. We have Jake Bernhardt here, who made some drills for us, 2-knee shooting. We're trying just to put out as much content as possible for our players to get outside and practice on their own. Instagram is probably the number one outlet for us to get to our kids. Email and Facebook are the best way to get to our parents. We've also launched a health and safety advisory board, which is composed of some high-level medical experts that we know, in addition to some state troopers that are high up that might be able to, help us with our, return to play plan. We've got some lawyers in there. So, that's something that we're going to use as we get more guidance from the government and the CDC. We're going to bounce ideas off of those folks. Now, the tournament providers so far have been, everyone's kind of in a bit of a holding pattern. People have pushed their tournaments to kind of the end of July and beginning of August for youth. We'll see what happens with the recruiting window. The NCAA made all of June a dead period last week, and they're going to be ruling on July to August 11th. On May 27th, they said they'd put something out. The thinking is that maybe they will extend the dead period from August 11th all the way to the September 1st. But until then, everyone's just kind of in a holding pattern and waiting for everything to open back up. So that's where we are currently, and we're just hoping we can get out and play soon. We all miss it, and the weather's starting to turn here in New Jersey, so we're itching even more. So that's it. I see that I have some Q&As. I think I got a blinking red light up top. Thank you, Brad, for having me on here. This was a pleasure and an honor. And let's get to some of these questions here.
So one of the questions is about the dimensions of the SRG box rink that you use.
Oh, yes. So our box rinks are almost a full hockey rink length. So 80 by 200 feet.
200 by 85 is a regulation rink.
Yeah, I think that we might be a little underneath that. Maybe we're more like 70 and 185. The beauty of the SRG Pro Wall system is that it's built into pieces. So let me see if I can go back here. You can configure the rink to whatever size, you want. Let me see here. Let me just find an example. So like these are all panels. That's one panel, two panels. So you can mix and match it to fit your space. It's an awesome product.
So the next question, and I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this or not, but it's why hasn't U.S. Lacrosse been more proactive in box lacrosse coaching?
That puzzles me. I know it puzzles you, Brad. It's a really good question. Why aren't we focusing more on box lacrosse as a country? I mean, it was only until 3 years ago when U.S. Lacrosse put out new rules for small-sided gameplay. They want 7v7 with small fields and small goals, which has been a disaster from an execution standpoint. I haven't seen that in one single place. That's been bad. They just built, the Bill Tierney, I think it's the Tierney complex in Sparks, Maryland for U.S. Lacrosse. And they didn't build one single box rink. I mean, it just doesn't make much sense. And, from an educational standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, it's irreplaceable. So I think that it will grow in the U.S. People will realize how important it is. It's just going to take more time. And why U.S. Lacrosse isn't all for it is beyond me. I mean, U.S. Lacrosse still thinks third graders should have sticks that are 42 inches long. I mean, that's not what it should be. Little guys should have their sticks cut. Everything should be scaled to age and size. So I wish I could answer that for you.
Yeah, you know what? That's a tough one to answer. I don't know. I think with my involvement, I might be a little bit more in a stance to answer that. in terms of the education process for U.S. lacrosse, I mean, they've got a back end that's built on field lacrosse right now, and it's not something I guess they can kind of turn on right away. Brian, if you want to turn your screen back on there.
Yeah.
So it's not just something that they could turn on. You know, it's a long process. We do have a program here in Canada where it doesn't matter if you're from the United States, or whatever country, you can take it. You can come up and partake in those programs, but it depends also what you want to get out of that education program, because if it's X's and O's, it's more programs such as this and summits such as this that you get more of those kind of teaching points. You see a lot of certification programs about risk management before they're about anything else, and you can see that with USL number 1, 2, and 3. It progresses, which is the same in Canada. So I don't know if it's not that they've been proactive. They could be doing it behind the scenes. I have no idea. But I know that education in U.S. lacrosse is a priority for them. So don't be surprised that if something pops up quite quick. Now, having said that, one of their program directors has left and went to World Lacrosse. So that TJ Buchanan was their education coordinator. I forget his exact title, but TJ was a big piece of that puzzle for U.S. lacrosse. And now that he's gone, I don't quite know who's filling that role for them. But to transition from field lacrosse right into box lacrosse without any experience, it would be tough. So it would also be time consuming.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The fact that there was no box mention at the new U.S. lacrosse facility. I mean, that kind of said it all for at least the current mood.
Yeah. So the floor is open for any Q&A. If there's anything you'd like to ask Bryan, we can throw that into the Q&A box. There's we've still got some time left here to occupy Bryan during his COVID break.
This has been a good break. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah. So I had another one that was texted to me just before I had said, "Hey, please don't do that." So they're talking about the positional coaches that you bring in. Are they either a part of your staff, or are they quote unquote hired guns?
So that's a good question. We have a roster of coaches. I would say they're 40 to 50 guys that are primarily just Blue Star guys. While they might go and maybe coach a clinic somewhere else, they, for the most part, only coach Blue Star. And I think we've kind of created the culture amongst our coaches that it'll be frowned upon to go coach for somebody else's clinic. And while we do sometimes have guests, like we've had a couple like guys like Ty Thompson or whoever come in for a guest session. Our positional guys are either guys that played for Don and MV, the two other directors, or teammates of mine, coaches high schools that we coach with. So for the most part, they are not just hired guns.
Okay. And for your box fields, do you rent the outdoor space, or do you have a relationship with the facility where they work with Blue Star to kind of keep them on the field for a duration?
So we put them on 2 turf fields, 2 different schools that we've just developed relationships with, and we put them down as soon as their fall seasons are over, and we leave them there until the spring sports start. And we tell the schools that you guys can use these, you can use these box fields for whatever you want when we're not there, recess or other varsity sports. And they do get you'll show up to practice one day and you'll see like some kids just playing soccer in there, or lacrosse. So they do get a lot of other use. Any female box participants showing interest? So we don't. There is I think, a growing demand for female box lacrosse programming. We haven't seen it, and I think that's probably because everyone knows right now that we're only doing boys. If girls came to us, it'd definitely be interesting. I think if they were okay with it and their parents were okay with it, we would certainly have them in the box program. But right now, we haven't seen a ton of demand here at Blue Star for girls box programming. I do know that other clubs, girls clubs in New Jersey, do play box lacrosse over the winter.
So, one of our participants is he's located in Indiana, and he was just indicating that's why he was asking a question related to the boxes, because he's been trying to do something and be prepared for when interest really grows in box, to be able to sustain that.
Got it. If you can get a set of these SRG boards, they are very versatile. They allow you to plop down programming wherever you can find some space for them, and they've been an incredible investment for us.
So, I mean, we've got, I can see the participants here. We've got a pretty wide range of people from both sides of the border and across the pond. Actually, I can see some European representation in there. So the question that I had into was kind of funny, because I already know the answer to it, but they asked, what was your first experience in box lacrosse? So I had a firsthand witness to it, so I didn't want to answer that for you.
It was 2015. I went to Prague to play for Brad's team in the Alice Zabreski Memorial, and I'm pretty sure my first shift, someone cross-checked my helmet off my face, and then my second shift, I went out and cross-checked someone in the throat and got a penalty, and from then it was on. So it was pretty fun, to say the least.
So just a comment from Chloe. Looks like she's based in the UK. As they've got female box starting to grow popular in the UK, which is phenomenal. We had a she box event being planned for the Alice Zabreski this year before it was canceled. So hopefully we'll be able to bring back that next year. But one of the Q&As was they're struggling to recruit and develop coaches in the UK. When do your seasons run? So give them your, I would say, your summer season and your fall season. And do you think any coaches would be keen to volunteer?
Okay, I see it. Yeah.
Cheap in between. Basically, would they be would they be open to a work exchange program?
Right. So our summer season is June to July. Well, this year will be August, June, July, August. And then our box season goes from November to February, just on the weekends. I don't think any of our coaches would be able to go overseas. Most of our coaches are doing this on the weekends and kind of on the side. We struggle to find good box lacrosse coaches here in New Jersey. I can only imagine what it's like in some other parts of the world. Okay.
Well, we'll put a final call for questions out there. We're approaching the hour, and the Q&A, the question that came in about or from Britain or UK, sorry. I've got some interest, and I've got people as well. I think your best bet would be send myself or tag the Lac Summit on Twitter with some information, because whoever is posting this didn't put their first name and last name in, so I can't see it. Just says not available. But even now, I just got a text message from someone else posting and saying, "Hey, I'd be very interested in that." And I know this coach. He's a good young coach. He's played for me as well, so I wouldn't hesitate in recommending that he come over and do that type of experience. Because if I had it in my budget, I'd bring him with me as part of our crew as well. So
We have some good questions here.
sure.
Mark, how much communication on status advice for player development do you present to the player versus filter through the parents of the player? So I think that's kind of age dependent. We would love to only interact with players and not have to deal with parents, to be honest. But parents are allowed to ask us, what do you think, my son should work on? What do you think about his game right now? And it's kind of depending on the player. There's that fine line of the parents being a Zamboni parent where they want to clean the ice for their kid in front of them and make everything smooth versus letting the kid kind of figure it out. So we try to do as much of it through the player as possible. Again, talking to a 5th grade boy is sometimes very challenging. Kenny, hopefully that answers your question, Mark. Sorry if I missed this, but at the beginning of the talk, you mentioned you run year round. Oh, yeah. So in the spring, we have a very tapered down schedule. Our high school guys don't do anything with us in the spring. They're at their high school programs. The youth towns, we work with them. We don't do a ton of practices in the spring for our teams because we know that they're playing, in a lot of cases, they're playing really good town lacrosse. Like, there's some really good middle school and youth lacrosse that goes on in New Jersey. Very competitive. So we don't want to step on on their toes. That's sacred time in those towns. So if we do practices in the spring, they'll be late on Sunday evenings. We'll check with our big contingents of folks from one town and make sure we schedule around. As a parent, Christopher Stevenson, as a parent, what is good method for addressing a coach who wants? So I'm assuming Christopher is yeah, go for it.
Move your player to a different program if you can. Specializing in 3rd grade is absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. That is, I mean, if you can't, I'd sit down and have a discussion with the coach first and foremost to ask what the thought process is behind it. But I wouldn't even consider letting a 3rd grader specialize in a position.
I completely agree. Christopher, again, what's a good way to split time when developing younger players who are willing to play goalie? I would say, if a player wants to play goalie, let them play for half the game. I would say that when they get to 6th and 7th grade, 6th grade is probably when they want to start figuring out, okay, I want to do this. I want this to be my position. I think I can be good at this moving forward. What are the signs of a good program, and what should people avoid in a program? The signs of a good program, I would say, I'd say the staff. And when you're picking up a club program for your son, you want to do your research. Like, you want to ask other parents that have older kids that play, or kids in town that are older than your son, because you want to talk to someone that's been through it, and you will see. You see all these programs when you go to tournaments anyways, once you pick a club. So I think, the sign of a good program is the staff, what you hear from other folks. There are a lot of, I'll be the first to admit it, there's a lot of club programs out there that are just serious money grabs. And that's an unfortunate reality, as with any industry. But, I think that you really have to take a look at the staff. Okay, what's their qualifications? Why should they, what is their background? The director. Okay, there's 3 directors. What are their backgrounds in lacrosse? Is this their full-time gig? How long have they been doing this for? That those are the things you really need to take a look at when you're doing your research.
And part of that goes back to the kind of the certification or the lack of certification that needs to happen. I had a conversation with a facilitator, a learning educator or that represents a strong word. He's licensed by U.S. Lacrosse, I guess would be the term. And I mean, it varies from country to country. We have a national program in Canada where, it doesn't matter the province, there's certain levels that you have to proceed through just to get on the bench. Whereas when I came down to the United States, no one asked any questions except for my criminal background check. And, as much as I think that's becoming common and it's common sense, it's kind of the wild, wild west when it comes to education. So I've been trying to tell parents is ask questions about certifications. What have you done? Where have you gone? What have you taken in school? I mean, sometimes it's nice to know that a kid's actually taken coaching courses. Who have you learned from? Who are your mentors? And that doesn't have to be an interview. It can just be a conversation.
Yeah. The mentorship culture part of any club program, I think that's the biggest. All the coaches at Blue Star have either played for myself, Envy or Don, played at college, some of them at the highest level, are either coaches or school teachers. Those are all, like Brad said, there's no certification. It's not as good as it is up north, but
that's just different. Don't get me wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. So, good point.
So let's take the last question here from Danielle, because it's actually a really, really good question, and it's a hot topic item right now.
Yeah, no, I was just pulling something up for Danielle. Have you considered the implementation of mental skills programs for young athletes? This is something again to pop up more regularly within the sport organization. I haven't seen much of it in lacrosse yet. So that's a very good question. I guess the attitude towards mental skills is shifting a little bit to be a little bit more formal training for mental skills. Like I'll show you what we've done with our high school guys several times. Is we've had like Navy SEALs come in for a day and they work with our guys with building character, of rolling logs, doing push-ups, all sorts of stuff like that. And we do that right at the beginning of the summer for our high school guys. We've done it 2 times. In terms of mental training, we probably are a bit behind on that. I'll be honest. I would be very curious. I'm probably going to do some research after this on that. But that's that you're right, Danielle, that is becoming more and more important. And it's a very important part of the game for sure. Very important part of the game.
Yeah. Well, and part of it, I would agree, lacrosse is somewhat lax or lags in that. But there's also other times where, I know as a coach, you've played for me, so I can talk to the point where we talked about film and visualization. So mental skills is a pretty wide ranging subject. We do have actually a module next week by Melissa Rausch, who's at I want to say Colorado College D3 program, who's doing one on developing the mental side of the game for by coaches using Q&A and asking players. So that's a pretty wide ranging question. I like it, but there is certainly, I think it's because of the lacrosse culture right now, to be honest with you, is we're not accepting because it's different. So we need a few people to do it first, accept it, and then broadcast that they've accepted it. And then all of a sudden everybody seems to get on the train.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, listen, again, appreciate everybody that participated today. Bryan, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and good luck to, you and the family. Stay safe out there, and we'll chat again soon.
Thanks for having me, Brad. This was awesome.
All right. Thanks, take care. We're back on in an hour with Travis Johnson from New Jersey Tech.